Will the House come to order, Mr. Clerk?
Aloha and good afternoon. Today's invocation will be delivered by Representative Lisa Martin. Will the members who wish to participate please rise?
Please be seated. All right, aloha kako. It won't be surprising as someone with a background in public health that I want to talk about the pandemic. Our situation that we find ourselves in with the COVID pandemic reminds me of a parable I heard. The story goes like this. There is a man, he's stranded on his porch with flood waters rising around him. A boat comes by and they offer to have him get in. They said, we'll take you to safety. He said, no, God will help me. The flood waters keep rising. He climbs onto his roof. Then a helicopter comes. And they're like, get in the basket. He said, no, God will help me. The flood waters keep rising. He drowns. And in the afterlife, he asks his God, why didn't you save me? I'm a good and faithful man. And his God replied, well, I tried. First I sent you a boat, and then I sent you a helicopter. And when I think of this story, it makes me feel like for us, our boat is our understanding of the virus and how it's transmitted. And we were able to create all sorts of physical barriers to prevent that transmission and keep the pandemic within control here. But that came at such a great cost to our economy, to our kids' education, and to other aspects of our health, like our mental health. Now we've got the helicopter, and that's the vaccine. And all of us, as leaders in our communities, can play a role in helping people who are able to get onto that helicopter. Right now, I understand that there is, a big problem with adequate supplies of the vaccine. But I think in a short time, that will no longer be our problem, and our problem will be vaccine hesitancy, which is something that actually has a long history. The very first vaccine was against the terrible smallpox virus. They used the less harmful cowpox to inoculate people. And at that time, there was opposition. There's old cartoons that have people sprouting cow heads. But now, opponents of the vaccine have a lot more resources. There's actually foreign governments involved in this, and there's a lot of people with an economic interest, whether they be conspiracy theory websites that get paid for advertisements, or people that have alternative remedies that they would like to sell. So this is something that we have to combat with information and facts. And when asked, when is a good time for me to get the vaccine, the answer is when it's available to you, because there is a cost in organizing the distribution. And so the time to do it is when it's there so that we are as efficient and decrease waste. And people might ask, which vaccine should I get? And we do find ourselves in a very unusual situation now, in that we had a race to create a very achievable vaccine, so it's not surprising that we have multiple winners. And if you think about it, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine has a little bit of a branding issue right now, but that vaccine is so good that in a single dose, they are able to provide the same protection as vaccines that we have been using for decades, unlike the other two that required a booster. And all three vaccines, even against variants, have been 100% successful so far at preventing hospitalization and death. And those in the end are the outcomes that we really care about most. So please encourage your constituents, because you have so many ways to communicate and the ability to be a role model. Help them get on that helicopter, whether it's because they're worried about their own health, whether they don't want to be part of the transmission chain to others, or whether they don't want to be a host for mutations that might create new variants. And anyways, I just thank you for that effort. Aloha.
Thank you, Representative Martin. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Aquino, Ms. Bellotti, Mr. Bronco, Mr. Cullen, Ms. DeCoit, Ms. Eli, Mr. Ganaden, Mr. Gates, Ms. Har,
Present.
Mr. Hashem, Mr. Hashimoto, Mr. Holt, Ms. Ichiyama, Mr. Iligan, Mr. Johansson, Ms. Capella, Ms. Kitagawa, Mr. Bertrand Kobayashi, Mr. Dale Kobayashi, Mr. Kong, Mr. Lopresti,
Present.
Ms. Lowen, Ms. Luke, Ms. Martin, Mr. Matayoshi, Ms. Matsumoto, Mr. McDermott, Mr. McKelvey,
Excused.
Mr. Mizuno, Ms. Morikawa, Ms. Nakamura, Mr. Nakashima, Mr. Nishimoto, Mr. Ono, Ms. Okimoto, Mr. Onishi, Ms. Peruso, Mr. Quinlan, Mr. Sayama, Mr. Takayama, Mr. Takumi, Mr. Tam, Mr. Tarnas, Mr. Todd, Mr. Tokioka, Mr. Ward, Ms. Wildberger, Mr. Woodson, Mr. Yamane, Mr. Yamashita, Mr. Speaker.
Present.
Mr. Speaker, 50 members are present, one is excused.
Item 2, reading of the Journal, Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, may this matter be deferred.
So ordered. Item 3, Mr. Clerk, are there any messages from the Governor?
Mr. Speaker, there are none.
Item 4, Mr. Clerk, are there any Senate communications?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we are in receipt of communications transmitting the noted Senate bills, all having passed third reading in the Senate.
For the first reading motion, Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Senate bills laying on the clerk's desk pass first reading by title.
Representative Matsumoto.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. Members will be taking a short recess subject to the call of the chair. Recess.
Members of the House, please be seated.
Will the House come to order? Members on item 5, Representative Morikawa for the motion to suspend.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules of the House in order to consider certain House bills for third reading by consent calendar.
Representative Matsumoto.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt Standing Committee Report numbers 779 through 810 as listed on pages 1 through 8, and that the accompanying House bills pass third reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All right, members, is there any discussion beginning with SCR 779 on page 1? Next page, 780. Representative Okimoto.
With reservations, please.
So ordered. 781, 782. Representative Capella.
On 782, with reservations, please.
So ordered. Okay, 783, 784. Next page, 785, 786, 787, 788, 789. Next page, 780, 781, 790. Strike that. 790, 791, 792, 793. Next page, 794, 795, 796, 797. Representative Ward.
Speaker, with reservations, please.
So ordered. Okay, next page, 798, 799, 800, 801. Representative Capella.
With reservations, please.
So ordered. Okay, next page, 802, 803, 804, 805. Next page, 806. Representative Okimoto.
With reservations, please.
So ordered. Representative DeCoy.
Mr. Speaker.
In opposition, brief comment.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, it is clear that the awarding of these contracts should demonstrate need. We continue to put these lands up for lease. Besides that, CETAR already has its own fair share of problems in trying to advance himself in their own leases, as well as securing the fact of liability coverage. So with that, I am in opposition and permission to insert comments to the journal.
Okay, so ordered.
Thank you.
So further discussion, 806. Representative Lopresti.
Reservations, Mr. Speaker.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Representative Martin. Oh, Pruso.
In opposition with brief comments. So
Please proceed.
I want to say that I definitely applaud the intent and the direction of this measure, but I think that it needs more work, and so at this point, I'm in opposition.
Okay. Representative Nakamura.
With reservation.
So ordered. So further discussion? If not, 807. Representative Wahlberger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In opposition, please.
So
Brief
please
comment.
proceed.
Thank you. Right now, our employees' retirement system that every single person here is invested in is 18 months behind in its disclosure of earnings and performance. Any private investment vehicle would never be able to survive with that sort of performance. And so this bill is asking to make investments that are not disclosed to the people that are contributing. And so because of that, I am in strong opposition to this measure. Mahalo.
Okay, so further discussion on 807.
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Lopresti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In opposition,
Please proceed.
I just would like the comments from the representative from Kihei entered in the journal as if they were my own.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Okay, so further discussion? If not, 808, 809, 810. Is there any discussion? If not, We will take the vote. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, on the measures before us, all majority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 2, STANCOM report number 781, HB number 1056, HD1, the following vote no. Decoit, Kong, Tokioka. On page 3, STANCOM report number 786, HB number 328, HD2, Representative Kong votes no. On page 4, STANCOM report number 792, HB number 1069, HD1, Tam votes no. On page 6, STANCOM report number 800, HB number 310, HD2, Capella votes no. On page 8, STANCOM report number 806, HB number 531, HD2, the following vote no. Decoit, Capella, Dale Kobayashi, Onishi, Peruso, Tokioka. STANCOM report number 807, HB number 930, HD1, the following vote no. Ganaden, Capella, Peruso, Tam, and Waldberger. Thank you.
Representative Matsumoto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the measures before us, all minority members vote aye, with the exception of the following. On page 3, SCR 787, HB 1318, Representative McDermott votes no. On page 7, SCR 805, HB 424, HD1, Representatives McDermott and Ward vote no.
Okay, for the remote members, are there additional no votes?
Thank you,
Remote
Mr.
members?
Speaker.
Representative Presti.
Please record a no vote for me on page 9, SCR
No, we're,
80.
we're up to page 8, Representative. We're not on page 9 yet.
Forgive. Oh, that's on my notes, it's 9. SCR 807, HB 930.
Okay, that's before us. You have a no vote?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it's been recorded.
Thank you.
Okay, Representative Peruso.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker. On STANCOM report number 792, HB number 1069, please record a no vote for me based on the testimony provided to Finance. Mahalo.
Okay, so ordered. All right, members, have all votes been cast?
Mr. Speaker,
Representative Har.
on Standing Committee Report number 806, please have the clerk register a no vote.
So ordered. On 806. Have all votes been cast, members? Okay, if so, said measures pass third reading. Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt Standing Committee Report numbers 811 through 839 as listed on pages 9 through 15, and that the accompanying House bills pass third reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Okay, is there any discussion, members, beginning with SCR 811 on page 9, 812, 813, 814? Representative Matsumoto.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. At the appropriate time, if we can go back to 813.
Okay, any discussion on 814? If not, 813, Representative Matsumoto.
Just with reservations, please.
So ordered. Further discussion on 813, Representative Tokioka.
With reservations.
So ordered. Okay, 814, 815, Representative Okimoto.
With reservations, please.
So ordered. Okay, next page, 816, 817, 818, 819, Representative Ward.
Speaker, a no vote with a brief comment, please.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, this lessens the motion picture tax credit and cap. And to my way of thinking, this is a lessening of our competitive edge, our competitive advantage, and we are kind of in a bullish movie and TV area right now. But like many of us here, including my wife, we will not pay retail, and this is almost a necessary incentive, if you will. If you're going to come to film anywhere, you've got to have tax credits, and by us lessening the amounts, I think we're lessening our competition. And as I've said on this floor on numerous times and occasions, we have the ability to become the Hollywood of the Pacific, but we've got to play the structure of our incentives properly, and I think this is a disincentive. For those reasons, no. Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion? Representative Quinlan,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In support.
please proceed.
I would like to once again point out that this measure before us is one of fiscal accountability. It's one of transparency for our taxpayers. And quite frankly, I'm a little surprised that the party of fiscal responsibility, the party of fiscal conservatism, the party of such stalwarts as Donald Trump and President Ronald Reagan, who collectively increased our federal deficit by $10 trillion, would vote against such a measure. Thank you.
Representative Okimoto,
With reservations, please.
so ordered. Further discussion? If not, 8-0. Representative Yamashita,
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, in support with written comments, please.
so ordered.
Thank you.
Okay, next page, 821, 822, 823, 824. Next page, 825, 826, 827, 828. Representative Ward,
Speaker, in opposition with a brief comment,
please
please.
proceed.
Mr. Speaker, this is a well-intended bill. I think we want to lessen gases and pollution as much as possible. But the issue is it's the wrong timing. Mr. Speaker, this says that if a birthday party or a graduation has the release of a balloon that's inflated with gas that is lighter than air, you're going to be in trouble. Mr. Speaker, and again, with all due respect to the author, this trivializes the seriousness that we are now faced in the state of Hawaii. We've got the highest unemployment rate in the nation. We've got a huge budget deficit. And we're playing around with balloons and saying that we're going to make a difference by saying if you're going to have a birthday party or graduation, we're going to prohibit that. All this does is grow government and grow the authority of we in the state government has over the people, and I think this sends the wrong message. It's Nero in the burning of Rome while he is fiddling. And with all due respect, look, it makes sense, it's a good thing, but it's not the time to do it now. It sends the wrong message to the people of Hawaii. Thank you, Speaker.
Okay, Representative Okimoto,
With reservations, please.
so ordered. Further discussion? Representative Tokioka,
Reservations.
so ordered. Okay, 829. Next page, 830.
Mr. Speaker,
Representative Presti.
at the appropriate time, if we can go back to SCR 829, please.
Okay, let's go 830. Representative Ward.
I wanted to go back also.
Okay, let's go back to 829. Representative Presti.
Reservations, please.
So ordered. Further discussion on 829. Representative Ward.
Speaker, a brief comment basically echoing what OHA said.
This is in a support or opposition?
In opposition.
Please proceed.
If this involves Crown lands and lands that the Hawaiians should have, we have a moral imperative to return the Hawaiians to the land. And if this alienates more land, we're going in the opposite direction. So on behalf of what OHA has said, in between the lines, this is a step backwards. We don't need to give less land to the Hawaiians, more land, and obviously more housing. Thank you.
Okay, is there further? Representative Nakamura,
In strong support.
please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, since I first got elected to this body 4 years ago, I noticed that the legislature has made an incredible commitment to affordable housing. And you've done that, I think we've all collectively worked on this to increase the amount of funds going into the dwelling unit revolving fund and the rental housing revolving fund, the two critical tools used to build and finance affordable housing in the state of Hawaii. As a result of this commitment by this legislature, over the next 5 years, 8,000 affordable rentals and homes will be built. We met with OHA and HHFDC recently to talk about how do we position Native Hawaiians into these rental units and homes. And we came up with some preliminary ideas about how to make this happen. And Mr. Speaker, the end result is that we are going to be working together with HHFDC and OHA to create waiting lists of renter-ready and mortgage-ready Native Hawaiians who can then have the opportunity to live in these units that have been financed by the state of Hawaii. And so this is another tool that gives HHFDC the opportunity to do more, to not draw the line in the sand, but rather find ways to work together to make renter and homeownership a reality. And I just feel that we have the opportunity to address the critical issue of Native Hawaiians who are disproportionately homeless, disproportionately live in crowded conditions, and disproportionately are not homeowners in their native lands. So I want to recognize and thank the Vice Chair of the Housing Committee and the Vice Chair of Water and Land for assisting in these ongoing discussions, and hopefully we will work toward really making a difference for our Native Hawaiians. Thank you.
Representative Hashimoto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Strong support, and I'd like to adopt the words of the Housing Chair as if they were my own.
So ordered. Is there further discussion on 829? If not, next page, 830, 831, 832, 833. Representative Okimoto?
With reservations, please.
So ordered. Next page, 834, 835, 836. Representative Ward.
Speaker, in opposition with a brief comment.
Please proceed.
This bill gives basically martial law powers to the governor. I don't think we're under martial law. He can take over buildings. In fact, he could take over this legislative session and building if he so desired. So I think it's a bit of an overkill and overreach. I know we want to be good to the governor. We want to make the emergency powers work. But to have a bill like this suggests to me that the departments are not cooperating when the government or the governor asks for something. And again, it looks too much like martial law to me. Thank you.
Representative Johansson.
Thank you. In support.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Just to correct the record, this bill has nothing to do with martial law. All it explicitly does in statute is clarify that for state agencies in times of emergency proclamation, the governor is able to assume control of any state facility. Members may be wondering the genesis of this bill, which is why I'd like to explain it, because I've heard it mischaracterized in several floor sessions now, and I thought for the record, since this is third reading, I would elaborate. Mr. Speaker, under your leadership, the House has launched numerous initiatives, whether it was the standing up of the unemployment insurance, massive operation at the Hawaii Convention Center, as well as the 2 public vaccination sites for the mass public vaccination campaign. And many of those members that you tasked with working on it know all too familiar how long and painful and arduous the discussions were with various state agencies in a crisis, one of the greatest crises that our public, that members of the public have faced with us, know all too well how long and painful the negotiations were over whether or not a state agency would be recompensed and be able, and what rate of pay would be necessary to compensate a state agency that the state taxpayer is already funding through their taxes. So although the governor may already have this authority implied, the truth is, Mr. Speaker, that to borrow the phrase of the previous speaker, while Rome is burning, rather than, sorry, it's hard to breathe, rather than wasting precious time while a pandemic is raging, the governor shouldn't have to be so concerned with whether or not we're going to pay to use a school, whether or not we're going to pay to use a convention center. We should be acting on the best interest of our constituents, especially because they're already underfunding all these state properties as it is. This bill merely clarifies that in statute so that if we are ever in a situation similar to this pandemic, we're not wasting precious weeks and days negotiating what the rate of recompense will be for a state-funded or taxpayer-funded facility. Thank you.
Representative Ward.
Speaker, brief retort. I totally agree with the logic of that, but if we're in an emergency and I'm running the convention center, I shouldn't be concerned about charging the governor rent. I should just yield the right of way, and that's my whole sense, that this issue looks like a leadership issue, that the departments are not in sync with the governor, or there's something not in sync when we have an emergency. We shouldn't be talking about how many days and how much rent we should be paying. We should be getting on with the emergency and getting the job done for the people of Hawaii. That's my point. Thank you.
Representative Tam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In support,
Please proceed.
I would like to have the comments from the representative from West Honolulu inserted into the journal as of my own. And I would also like to add that I've received a lot of comments from my constituents as to why we couldn't use the convention center for mass vaccination centers. And this bill would basically allow us to use that. And I just don't think that the state should be charging the state rent for a state service. Thank you.
Okay, and so ordered on the comments. Representative Dale Kobayashi.
With reservations. Thank you.
Okay, so ordered. Representative Ilagan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Same request with the rep over at Waikiki.
So ordered. So further discussion?
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Luke.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to, in strong support, when the House helped to set up the unemployment processing center at the convention center, one of the things that we became very aware of was that because Hawaii Tourism Authority had specific contract with the use of convention center, and because it was violation of contract law, the governor could not just completely forgive the payment of bringing in outside food for volunteers or even the use of facility. Right now, we're paying still about $12 million to the convention center, and it's not as, the emergency powers are still limited in the governor being able to ignore contract laws. The governor can ignore certain state laws and go around suspend certain current state laws, but under contract laws and others, you cannot. It is unfortunate that we continue to have to pay $12 million, even if it's on the books. That is money out of pocket for DLIR. And because of that, DLIR doesn't have the budget to hire more staff to process unemployment claims. Right now, they have about 100 call center employees still at the convention center based on the current expenses, and they have 75 adjudicators. I think they would like to have more, but because of the contract situation, they just cannot do it. Yeah, it is kind of an unfortunate situation. And we're finding out all these kind of things through the pandemic, but just as what the CPC chair recognized, if we can fix this for the future, we need to do it now, as opposed to trying to rely on or hoping that, through leadership or somebody answered the call. If we can just fix some of the laws and make it easier for the future governors or the future legislature to do it, we just have to. Thank you.
Representative Onishi.
Thank you, Speaker. With strong reservations.
Please proceed.
I just want for people to understand that HTA and the Convention Center are funded through appropriations from the TAT. Now, their contracts that they make between private entities depend on that TAT funding. And when the issue of the use of the convention center was brought up, the governor had suspended all appropriations from the TAT. So the HTA and the convention center were basically not getting any funding to make good on those contracts. So they suspended those contracts. And when the use of the convention center was considered, the issue of who's going to clean the convention center and how we're going to pay for the utilities that are being used without compensation was apparent. And so You know, other government entities are already funded with general fund appropriations for their expenses, but the convention center and HTA are funded directly through TAT appropriations. And in this situation, the governor, instead of continuing the appropriations so that the convention center and HTA could provide the center for free, decided to suspend it, and they had no funding in order to make good on those contracts and provide the services that were necessary for the use of the convention center. So I have strong reservations in regards to this bill. Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion? Representative Tokioka.
Reservations.
So ordered. Is further discussion? Representative Cullen.
Mr. Speaker, I stand in strong support.
Please proceed.
As a member who volunteered at the convention center and saw, the UI claims that came in and the possibilities and all the individuals that we did help at that time, saw that this measure was needed because as we looked at the budget, not just for last session and then seeing it in this session, as we read the budget and you see some of the U fund transfers to cover costs for emergency related items, this measure would just seem common sense. And in doing that, we can help the department streamline many things and be more efficient. With that, I stand in strong support, Speaker. Bye.
Okay, is there further discussion on 830? Representative Ichiyama.
Mr. Speaker, in support, and just a brief
Please
comment.
proceed.
This bill really just clarifies what is already in our existing emergency statute, HRS 127A, and it just clarifies and gives the governor this extra flexibility and powers and authority. And I think in a state of emergency, that extra flexibility is warranted. Thank you.
All right, is there further discussion? If not, 837. Next page, 838. Representative Okimoto.
Reservations, please.
So ordered. Representative DeCoit.
Reservations, please.
So ordered. Representative Tokioka.
No vote, Speaker, and just a brief comment.
Please proceed.
When you read this bill, it looks like it's applied to the neighbor islands. But specifically, it was focused, in my opinion, and many people from my district and from the island of Kauai, it was focused on Kauai. That's how they feel. And a lot of times they feel separated from, what happens over here. That's why, they count on their delegation to stand up for them. With Mayor Kawakami's request to Governor Ige to open up safe travels on April 5th, it seems that this bill would not even be necessary. So for those reasons, Speaker, in opposition. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Wildberger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In continued exasperated opposition, brief comment, please.
Please proceed.
Many of y'all might remember receiving this lovely medallion from the governor after opening day with wishes of unity and best wishes for a great session, which I appreciate so much. But I was shocked to find the words that were on the front of it that read, one canoe, one island, one planet. And I can subscribe to the one canoe concept, and I certainly can subscribe to the one planet concept, but I have a big problem with the one island concept, and I think that is really the heart of a large reason why I ran for office, to bring a voice to our neighbor islands. And I feel like this bill takes us steps back from achieving autonomy and having a voice. And so, again, Mr. Speaker, in opposition, and would like to see autonomy retained for leaders on the ground, particularly as it pertains to emergency preparedness and disaster management. Thank you very much.
All right, is there further discussion? Representative Ward.
Speaker, with reservations, brief comment.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, these are the times that try the mindset and the ability of legislators. On the one hand, I feel very strongly we've got to get tourism back in, we've got to get the economy going. At the same time, I sense home rule and what Mayor Kawakami, a very competent former colleague in this body, what he wanted to do it even better than we had for the state of Hawaii. He could be a model. Now, I understand that he is now backed off of that and he's willing to go for the state. So we've got to get tourism open. We've got to get a consistency, and I said recently I came back from the mainland, it was just a jungle trying to get through all the 72 hours and the other stuff. So that is still a problem, but at least we're going to have some consistency. But I think home rule needs to be more honored more often, and for those reasons, Mr. Speaker, I hope this goes well, but I have reservations as to how it's going to work out. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Representative Nakamura. Reservation so ordered. Representative Morikawa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In support.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, HB 1286 has been a very contentious measure. However, as with many bills, this is the public's opportunity to voice their concerns. We know that consistency is a key to success, and the intentions of this bill is just that. I believe the message is clear that we need a policy that will work for Hawaii, that will help to spur our economy, stabilize our workforce, and of utmost importance, maintain the health of our state. It has spurred the conversation and brought the advocates to the table, which has helped to find solutions that many can agree on. Whether or not this measure is necessary, I am not sure. It could impede our end goal, or it could continue fostering good conversations. Only time will tell, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Representative Burt Kobayashi.
Mr. Speaker, in support with reservations.
Please proceed.
My concern is flexibility and speed of action. This bill would require that there be a joint session, or I'm sorry, not a joint, a concurrent resolution of the legislature in order to change a state law. First of all, the legislature convening during the interim is often difficult and not quick. The other point is that if there is a state law...
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Bellotti.
I believe the content of this bill is the Safe Travels Program and not the Emergency Management Committee. Thank you.
Representative Burt Kobayashi.
Thank you. If there is a state law, a law would be more inflexible than a governor's proclamation. So both in terms of law and in terms of changing law, it's slower. If we have this bill, if this bill comes into law, I would rather see a process that is flexible and fast reacting. Thank you.
Representative Ichiyama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support.
Please proceed.
I think to the just past speaker's comments about flexibility are well taken. And so that's why this bill was amended to create the concurrent resolution process, which members may not know is very simple. It's a one-day process versus trying to pass a law, which in special session can take 5 days. I would also say that I think our legislature has proven itself to be remarkably flexible and agile in this past year in responding to whatever needs came up. And I think members recognize across their districts when a need arises, they were there, they responded quickly. And I think that's an important point that we shouldn't miss here, that this bill has built in flexibility, but also it provides a stability and certainty to an industry that has been in complete chaos and confusion. And that's really what we're trying to address here, is to provide consistency, predictability, stability, so that we can reopen our economy, people can get back to work and feed their families. I also wanted to talk about, I mentioned earlier in second reading that I believe that public health and economic health are intertwined, and I still find that true. But the second reason I support this bill is because I believe that decisions that have a statewide impact need to be made at a statewide level. And let me give you 2 examples. Mr. Speaker, if we allow a particular county to close down their economy, that has a significant impact on our state finances, our state budget. So our school system is one state school system, that's funded in large part by general fund revenues. Those general fund revenues are collected from the general excise tax, income taxes, even the TAT. And when we have to make cuts, that doesn't just affect one county, Mr. Speaker. That affects schools from Hilo to Hanalei. And I'm proud of our statewide system. I think it makes it fair, makes it equitable. But the only way that we can do that is to spread our resources across the state and not just say whatever one county has should stay in that county. A second example I would offer is unemployment insurance. Mr. Speaker, when we close down a sector of our economy and hundreds of people are furloughed or lose their job, it's the state that has to maintain the unemployment insurance system. We have to administer it. We hire the call center workers, the adjudicators. We have taken on the fiscal responsibility of borrowing hundreds of millions of dollars to pay UI benefits. And so again, Mr. Speaker, I would just reemphasize my support for this bill because statewide decisions that have a statewide impact should be made at a statewide level. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Belatti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I have the words of the chair of the Pandemic and Disaster Preparedness Committee entered as if they are my own?
So ordered.
And may I move to strike my point of order as I misunderstood the representatives from Kahala's comments with respect to the debate on this bill?
Okay, that's also so ordered.
Thank you.
Representative Luke,
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, in support.
please proceed.
One of the things that I support this bill is, as you know, Mr. Speaker, even during the interim, many of us helped the administration during this whole process. And my staff has been involved in many of the day-to-day function of what's going on. Part of the money that was used for CARES was to purchase significant amount of test kits that Department of Health is holding. And priorities have been set for those test kits, including essential workers, hospitals, including long-term care facilities and others. Because we have no statewide system, and it is really about, what counties come in to ask for things before any other counties. Recently, we were able to learn that 250,000 test kits were diverted to one specific county for a safe travels type of second test program. And we were successful. Thank you to your efforts, Speaker. We were able to block that because part of the 250,000 that went to a specific county got diverted by that contractor for the benefit of Oahu. If anything, Oahu, City and County of Oahu, Honolulu, has the means to purchase their own second test. And it should not be state funds, it should not be CARES funds that take care of the second test. It really should be, the onus should be on the traveler. So those type of things are happening, and it is unfortunate. I mean, legislature is struggling with so many things. The administration is also struggling with a lot of things. And these specific day-to-day things are not being caught. And it really is onus on, it puts a burden on me and my staff and your staff and other members of the legislature to catch some of these mistakes. So I think that's why we need a statewide policy so we don't have to run to the governor and say, this is what's happening. Can you put a stop to this? Because you cannot benefit one county over others. And just to let the members know, the members from the two counties who spoke up, it wasn't in their county. So one of the things I really object to was that part of the test kits was diverted for the use for Oahu travelers. And that's not right. And that we should not be using CARES funding for the benefit of second tests, just for the benefit of few counties. So thank you very much.
Representative Onishi,
Thank you, Speaker, in strong support.
please proceed.
And can I have the words of the Chair from the Pandemic and Disaster Preparedness and Chair for Finance?
So ordered.
Entered into the journal as if they were my own. Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion? If not, Representative Pruso.
Chair, I'd like the record to reflect that I'd like my vote changed from no to with reservations.
Okay, so on 838.
Correct.
Okay, so ordered. All right, would anyone else like to change their vote? If not, we're on the next, we're on 839. Any discussion on 839? Is there any discussion on 839 or any other measure? If not, we will take the vote. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, on the measures before us, all majority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 9, STANCOM report number 815, HB number 598, HD2, Representative Kong votes no. On page 11, STANCOM report number 824, HB number 1263, HD1, Capella, Peruso vote no. On page 12, STANCOM report number 827, HB number 339, HD1, Ganaden votes no. STANCOM report number 829, HB number 902, HD1, the following vote no. Eli, Capella, Ilagan, Dale Kobayashi, Peruso. On page 15, STANCOM report number 838, HB number 1286, HD2, the following vote no. Capella, Takumi, Tokioka, Wahlberger. Thank you.
Representative Matsumoto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the measures before us, all minority members vote aye, with the exception of the following. On page 9, SCR 812, HB 434, HD1, Representative McDermott votes no. SCR 813, HB 485, HD1, Representatives McDermott, Okimoto, and Ward vote no. SCR 815, HB 598, HD2, Representatives McDermott and Ward vote no. On page 10, SCR 816, HB 766, HD1, Representative McDermott votes no. SCR 819, HB 1174, HD1, Representative Ward votes no. Page 11, SCR 823, HB 1105, HD1, Representative Okimoto votes no. On page 12, SCR 826, HB 282, HD1, Representative McDermott votes no. SCR 827, HB 339, HD1, Representative Ward votes no. SCR 828, HB 1102, HD1, Representative Ward votes no. SCR 829, HB 902, HD1, Representative Okimoto and Ward vote no. On page 14, SCR 836, HB 825, HD2, Representative Okimoto and Ward vote no.
Okay, for the remote members, are there any no votes? For the
Mr. Speaker?
Representative Har.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please have the clerk register a no vote for me on Standing Committee Report number 827.
Okay, 827 on page 12, so ordered. Any additional no votes for the remote members? If not, have all votes been cast? Okay, if so, said measures passed third reading. All right, we have 5 second reading bills. Representative Belatti.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt Standing Committee Report numbers 840 through 844 as listed on pages 15 and 16 and the accompanying House bills as amended past second reading and be placed on the calendar for third reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Is there any discussion beginning with SCR 840, 841, next page, 842, 843, 844? Any discussion on these items? If not, we'll take a voice vote.
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Luke.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me see which one it is. Sorry. So for STANCOM Report 843, House Bill 1298, House Draft 1, the reason why I'm standing up on second reading, my apologies to the members, there is...
In support.
In support.
Okay, please proceed.
There is one error, and that is the one of the funds in Department of Health. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I don't want the Department of Health, especially Nancy Barter at Department of Health, to be completely stressed out over the weekend. I do recognize that it is an error, and we will be correcting it as it goes through conference. Thank you.
All right, is there further discussion on 843 or any other measure before we take the voice vote? All right, all those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. Representative Bellotti.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House bills listed on pages 17 through 19 pass third reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Speaker, I second the motion.
All right, members, is there any discussion beginning with HB 1147 on page 17? HB 53, HB 1115, HB 784. Next page, HB 895, HB 674, HB 1075. Representative Ward.
Speaker, I rise in opposition today as I did yesterday.
Please proceed.
This bill, without mentioning any names, is about somebody who occupies the 5th floor. And
no, Representative Ward, Chair will strike any comments that go to motive and intent. It's a Rule 60 violation.
My motive and intent is to not mention a name. I thought that was the
Representative
rule.
Ward, that's a Chair's ruling. Do you wish to appeal?
Okay. The point is, this bill is untimely and targets an individual unfairly. And for those reasons, I will just say that it's probably the same thing I would say as I did yesterday, minus the redactation of what I did say, for the sake of what is in the process of being said.
Point of order.
Representative Quinlan.
Are we allowed to reference comments that have been struck from the record?
I mentioned...
Representative Ward, please
okay.
abide by Rule 60.
My point was, may the comments I made yesterday, minus the redacted comments, the good gentleman from the North Shore would listen. That was the point of my including in my comments. So what I said yesterday, minus what was redacted, I will finish now this speech with entering those into the journal, with your permission.
And please note the Chair will strike remarks that go to motive and intent. Please proceed.
I just wanted to speak about the bill. I have no
Please
motive
proceed.
intent other than what I've said. I just said as much as I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
All right, is there further discussion? Representative Bellotti,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In strong support.
please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, just to address some of the public discourse that this may be applicable to any past or present office holders, if we look at the language of the bill, it says November 1st, 2022. So that puts that to bed. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, this measure is not simply about employment. I would point members to the language of the bill that also refers to controlling interest in businesses. And what I would say is noted attorney, constitutional professor Zephyr teaches us and says, quote, corruption in the American tradition does not just include blatant bribes and theft from the public till, but encompasses many situations where politicians and public institutions serve private interest at the public's expense. It is that language in this bill that applies to the executives, and it is that language and concern about business interests that may intersect with the politician's own private interest. As a hypothetical, we could have a sitting executive who is a consultant to a group that maybe perhaps gains and garners large public contracts. It is that precise type of corruption that this bill aims to reach. And as we have seen, not just in our state, but in our nation, we have this concern about corruption, and it should apply to all of our executives who sit in these places of trust. And one last point, Mr. Speaker, as it was raised yesterday, The difference between legislators and executives is that we are designed to be a part-time, equal branch of government. In the instances of these executives, they are full-time employees who wield great power and influence over the use of public funds. Again, that is the corruption. That is what we are getting at with this bill. We need to have a clear barrier to the intermingling of businesses and governmental interest. That is the importance of this bill, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Is there further discussion on 1075? Representative Tokioka.
Sorry about that. No vote. And
Please proceed.
I'd like to ask the clerk to insert the words into the journal from my floor speech yesterday.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Representative Todd.
Thank you. With reservations.
So ordered. Representative Lowen.
With reservations.
So ordered. Representative Iligan.
Same request from the rep in Hilo. With reservation.
The representative from Kauai, or from Hilo, from Kona.
Mr. Speaker, with reservations.
Okay, so ordered.
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Holt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, with reservations.
So ordered. Representative Lopresti.
Reservations, please.
So ordered. Representative Quinlan.
Reservations, please.
So ordered. Representative Decoit.
No vote, permission to insert comments to the journal.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Representative Gates.
Reservations, Speaker.
So ordered. Okay, is there further discussion? Representative Matsumoto.
Reservations, please.
So ordered. Further discussion? If not, next page, HB 1339. Any discussion? Oh, strike that. HB 31 on page 18. Representative Tokioka.
Are we on HB 31?
Yes.
Okay. No vote.
No vote? Okay, so ordered. Representative Okimoto.
Reservations, please.
So ordered. Representative Dale Kobayashi.
Reservations, please.
So ordered. Representative Decoit.
No vote, please.
So ordered. Is there further discussion? Okay, if not, next page, HB 1339. Any discussion on this measure or any other measure? Representative Tokioka.
No vote.
Okay, on 1339, so ordered.
Yes.
Representative Bellotti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In support on House Bill 1339, and my comments should be brief.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This measure takes some explanation because I think for me this is an important measure for us to outline for future legislators the processes and roles and responsibilities that they may have to engage in the event that impeachment becomes a necessity. What we learned during the pandemic and in recent times, even with the concern around Mauna Kea, is that our constitutional provision for impeachment may not be self-executing. Of the 50 states, we are the only state that has in our constitution the language that our impeachment statute be for causes that may be provided by law. With the absence of the measure like this, it leaves future legislators without a roadmap, and that's what this bill does. This bill provides grounds for impeachment that are found in the U.S. Constitution and state constitutions, other state laws across the nation. I hope that this measure gets full consideration as it continues to move through the process, because we should not be left floundering in the event that impeachment becomes a necessity that this body, that this co-equal branch of government must exercise. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, is there further discussion on HB 1339 or any other measure? If not, we'll take the vote. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, on the measures before us, all majority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 17, HB number 784, STANCOM report number 771, the following vote no. Eli, Capella, Peruso. On page 18, HB number 1075, SCR number 774, the following vote no. Decoit, Kong, Tokioka. HB number 31, STANCOM report number 775, the following vote no. Aquino, Cullen, Decoit, Eli, Kong, Tokioka, Yamane. On page 19, HB number 1339, Stancom report number 776, the following vote no, Decoit and Tokioka. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Matsumoto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the measures before us, all minority members vote aye, with the exception of the following. On page 18, HB 1075, SCR 774, Representatives McDermott, Okimoto, and Ward vote no. HB 31, SCR 775, HB 31, McDermott and Ward vote no. HB 1339, Representative Ward votes no.
Okay, for the remote members, are there any no votes?
Mr. Speaker?
Representative Har.
Thank you. Please have the clerk register a no vote for me on standing committee reports number 774, 775, and 776.
Okay, that's so ordered. Any other no votes for remote members? Okay, if not, members, have all votes been cast? If so, said measures pass third reading. We're on item 7. Mr. Clerk, are there any resolutions for action?
Mr. Speaker, there are no resolutions for action. May all others be referred to print.
So ordered. Item 8, members, are there any announcements? Representative Decoit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning, I woke up with the news of the passing of Clarence Woody Kekaula Kalihiva of Kalaupapa, known to many of us as Uncle Boogie. Uncle Boogie was one of 12 patients that reside at the Kalaupapa settlement. Uncle Boogie was one of a kind, a gentle soul with a huge heart and a smile that you could see from a mile away. Many of us were lucky enough to visit with him last year when he came with other Kalaupapa residents to testify on a bill to designate January as Kalaupapa Month. Due to the pandemic, the bill was not able to be heard in the House. The bill is back again this year and will be crossing over from the Senate, and it is my hope that we can pass this bill as a tribute to Uncle Boogie and all of the residents past and present of Kalaupapa. Mr. Speaker, in 2012, Uncle Boogie was asked to write an introduction to a book about Kalaupapa, and at the end of the introduction, he wrote, "To all of our people, you will always be remembered. You are the pillars and icons of times past. This book is a tribute to you. Your stories are of solitude, passion, and grace, and may your legacy live on with aloha." Mr. Speaker, Uncle Boogie is one of the icons, and he wrote about, and I know, and the people of Kalaupapa, Molokai District 13, and the state of Hawaii are better because of his legacy and his aloha. Mr. Speaker, at the appropriate time, I would like to ask for a moment of silence to honor Uncle Boogie of Kalaupapa. Mahalo.
All right, members, we'll take a moment of silence after we recess. Are there further announcements? Okay, if not, we have a motion to keep the journal open. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I move to keep the journal open until 12 o'clock midnight for the purpose of receiving standing committee reports and House bills transmitted thereby.
Representative Matsumoto.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. For the motion to recess, Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand in recess until 9 o'clock a.m. Tuesday, March 9th.
Representative Matsumoto.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. The House stands in recess until 9 a.m. Tuesday, March 9. Recess. Members, could you please stand for a moment of silence in honor of Uncle Boogie from Kalaupapa. All right, thank you, members.